Welcome to the Football Retro Podcast.
The word welcome, I guess, is stretching it a little when you're an Australian in a place like this today.
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Football Retro Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, and another full screen, Fatty, Adazi and Akram. How you doing, guys? How you doing, Fatty?
Well, Johnny, good to have the boys back. We had a bit of a mishap. Let's not call that a mishap. Well, we couldn't record on Monday, but I feel it worked out for the best.
Why?
Because we're going to miss one of our fucking members, and it would have been an important episode because there was a lot of nostalgia there and a lot of statistics that we may miss.
It is a big episode. Yeah. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well, mate. Doing well. Enjoying the beautiful lockdown that we've been humbly graced upon. It's been fantastic. I've loved it. Can we go for longer? 2022, please. But it is what it is. So doing all right. What about you guys?
Darcy?
Doing well. Got the Pfizer jab a few days ago, so feeling all right, I think, for now. But we'll see how we go today.
I could see you growing another head on your shoulder.
Oh.
I gotta say
only in Tasmania.
You know what, Johnny? I've got to tell you, mate. Look, just to have a little tangent on the side. Did you know YouTube demonetizes any video that discusses anything about the vaccine or the jab?
Start it again. Start this session again.
Sorry, I thought we had a freedom of speech, but anyways.
I'm just telling you guys, I couldn't believe it. They're cutting out videos or demonetizing.
There you go, Fatty. What are you going to say?
No comment.
Okay.
What I was going to say was we've been having some amazing weather. Crack of spring. Football's on. It's that time of the year. Everything's just fucking perfect. So I'm not fucking listening to lockdown and all this bullshit.
And Champions League back soon as well.
Yes.
That's true. I've got my Argentina jersey on, so if any Brazilians tune in today, I hope they don't run away like they did the other day. I hope they stay on for the whole podcast show and then after 5 minutes try to stop it and get too scared and try to finish it early because
health orders.
Yeah, health orders. Yeah. You know what happens when you're the champions and you come back and haunt them. It happens. They have to stop us.
Look, I loved Argentina winning for Messi. I hated Argentina winning for the rest of fucking Argentina.
But you said the same thing about Italy, Greece, Liverpool. You just don't like people winning.
I don't like when people win and they're fucking gloating like fuckwits.
It's been 30 years since you won something.
Like, at least now you have a reason because you're the current champions. Before you were talking about fucking Maradona winning the World Cup. Like, bro, it was fucking 60 years ago. We get it.
What are you going to do if they win the World Cup next year?
Bro, I don't want them to win. I do not want them to win.
I've got to ask you guys, right now, is Argentina the favourite to the World Cup?
Nah. Italy.
No.
Italy would be.
Then maybe Italy. Then after that, maybe Argentina, though.
Maybe. That'd be a good final.
Maybe France.
I think Brazil would be more realistic than Argentina if you're talking about South American teams. Brazil have the squad for it.
Yeah.
And if France decide to turn up, maybe they'll give it a shot too.
Oh, who knows? Mbappe might be having a sook.
Anyways, tonight is Akram's baby. Tonight is Akram's episode. He's going to take charge. I'm going to step back. And we're going to talk about something that's very close to Akram's heart.
Would have been nice that you had told us this before we came on.
You wouldn't have come on if Akram was running the show?
No, I don't particularly like that Akram's guiding and determining what I can and can't say.
That's already happening every day of your life, apparently. So,
yeah, for the past 2 months, yeah.
So Akram, drinking your apple juice there. What's the topic?
All right, guys. So we're talking about AC Milan from the year 2000 to the year 2007. It's probably AC Milan's second greatest era after the Dutch trio era of the 80s. And it's an era that we all were heavily invested in European football and what was happening there. So we all thought it was a good idea. And Johnny, I really appreciate you giving me the chance to run the show. It's not because you couldn't be bothered to research today. That has nothing to do with it. No, all good.
I'm well informed, mate. I just wanted you to step up.
Fair enough, step up. Maybe I haven't been doing enough. Sorry, guys.
Promotion.
So you mentioned. Sorry, actually, one quick thing. You said the 80s. Would you say that the Milan era also went on to the 90s?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, when you think about the that Milan era, of course, it crossed over into the 90s. It was like 88 to what 94 or so. But you know, you really think about the Dutch trio being there from the late 80s, and by 91, 92, Van Basten had finished off and broken down, and Fuller had left.
I own Milan stuff. Just want to show.
Oh, thanks for telling. That wasn't random at all.
You had to mention that Villas.
It's just the AC Milan logo here.
How did you know that was coming? How did you?
It's just the AC Milan.
We're not even talking about the right era.
He's gonna bring up some Villas shit from 1965 where they drew against someone, and it was the very final history of their fucking little town, and that's it.
That's my contribution for tonight. So why 2000 to 2007, Akram?
I mean, like, I think, you know, clearly they didn't start winning consistently and win the big trophies until about 2003, right? But the reason why I thought, like, you know, the year 2000 is a nice round number, start with, turn of the century, and the players that really start to come into the team, you know, start to come in from around that era, right? I mean, we have the possibly the best defender of all time since the early 90s, we're playing there in Paolo Maldini and Darcy, right? So it only makes sense to start from that era when they're still forming the team. So you had Paolo Maldini. 1999, they had Andrei Shevchenko. So, you know, their top striker was signed. Inzaghi was signed around the same time, I think about 2000 or so, 2001. And then, you know, you start to see the building of the team. And, like, what would you say? I was thinking, Darcy, what do you think is the most important addition to that team as it starts to form into that Champions League winning side?
Well, as you mentioned, you had Shevchenko that came towards 99-2000 season. And then I think after that, though, a couple of big signings they made was from their city rivals Inter Milan in Andrea Pirlo and Clarence Seedorf.
100%.
You know, it doesn't quite happen.
Was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it that year or the year after when they signed Redondo from Madrid?
Yes, Redondo's an interesting case. He came in 2000 after Real won the 8th European Cup, and big controversy of him leaving. That a lot of fans didn't want him to go. He went to AC Milan, and then he suffered a bad injury in pre-season training, and it was so bad he missed like the whole first 2 seasons. And he even offered to give back the car they gave him, the house, stop his wages from being paid. And then came back in 2003, but wasn't the same player, obviously, from that injury. So, yeah, it would have been interesting to see how he would have gone if he didn't suffer that major injury.
I love Redondo. I loved Redondo.
Yeah.
I just had a spot for him. Just one of those players that, I don't know. I felt like a lot of missed potential sort of thing.
He's very important in the Real Madrid team as well.
Yeah.
Very, very.
100%. One of 2 players in that period of time that, you know, had that big profile and really, really disappointed when they joined Milan. I think one thing about all the transfers they made, all the major transfers, is that they were all fairly successful, except 2, Redondo and the other player, which, you know, people forget, played for AC Milan, is Rivaldo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there for 1 year and was really on the bench a lot of the time.
You think of Rivaldo, you think Barcelona. You don't think of AC Milan at all. But it's funny because I was looking at their transfers for that year 2000. Now that you mentioned it, I just pulled it up. A couple of other players that came in that, you know, that were synonymous with that early 2000s era, and especially running into the Champions League. Dida was signed.
Yep.
Well, his loan ended. It says that he came back. Roque Jr. and Julio Cesar both came in that year. George Weah came back in. George Weah obviously is synonymous with Milan. Very, very famous when you know in that Milan shirt of that era. But yeah, few players, and then obviously the squad itself never short of talent, especially in that early 2000s. And then they started to build on that, I think,
One player as well.
George
One
Weah
player as
said
well.
that he came in and then he got released.
Yeah,
Was
one
it-
player as
wasn't
well.
He was on loan. It says he was on loan at Chelsea. I don't.
Yeah, he did
I
play
don't
for
recall
Chelsea
him-
for a bit,
I don't
yeah.
recall him at Chelsea at all.
Yeah, very brief period there. He had, but one player as well. They signed in 2001, Rui Costa, big signing then
Yes.
when he
Yes.
came along from Fiorentina. They were suffering their financial troubles at the time. They had to let go a few of their well-known players, being him being one, and also Francesco Toldo being the other when he went to Inter. So there was a big signing there for Milan, Rui Costa, who, orchestrating that midfield. Very good playmaker. I remember him back in the.
Rui Costa. Whenever I think of Rui Costa at Milan, it's that infamous photo at the Milan derby, and the flares going off in the background. His
Materazzi, was it?
shoulder arm around. Was it Materazzi? Yeah. Inter Milan, and they're just side by side. Photos taken from the back. Yeah,
Who was the coach of Milan in that 2001 season?
Alberto Zaccaroni.
Okay.
Wow,
Yeah.
Zaccaroni.
Yeah, he
Zaccaroni.
they got. I remember Milan got knocked out in the second group stage of the Champions League that season. And,
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
Did you do research for tonight? Are you remembering?
No. I remember. I recall
Whoa.
the coach. Sorry, I can't say that.
Don't talk. Big brother's watching.
The GAB didn't affect you at all.
No, so
Let's
far.
say G.
No.
Yeah.
And guys, he said,
You said G.
Maybe it's affecting me, Darcy.
It's a gift to the game. So okay, what about the Serie A? They finished 6th in Serie A.
Yeah, that probably pretty much was the end of his time there at the club. Obviously finishing that low. I think it meant that they missed out on the Champions League the following season, so they had to be in the UEFA Cup.
UEFA Cup,
I
yeah.
believe. And then,
Let's say the Roma won it with Totti and Batistuta.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Like, AC Milan won it in 98, right? But, like, that period of time between the... Sorry?
99.
99.
Yeah.
AC Milan won in 99, yeah. So the idea is, but then that period of time when they won it to when the next time that they win it in about, 2004 or so, that period of time was so dominated by the Lazio, Juventus, and Roma kind of triangle. And AC Milan were having to build up into that point. And I think, like, the thing about Rui Costa I wanted to point out before, it's, this is like an iconic player, right? A Hall of Famer. And in a few years from him being signed, he finds himself eventually on the bench because of a player that we'll bring up later that really adds to that team and takes it up a notch. However, I think a big signing going into that 2003 kind of season, 02-03, was Alessandro Nesta.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Nesta, that partnership for me was one of the greatest partnerships probably ever formed.
Nesta Maldini.
Maldini Nesta has to be up there as one of the greatest partnerships. Obviously, later on in the AC Milan era, when the Yapstam and all that came in, and then Maldini moved out to the left. But Maldini Nesta, for me, would have to be one of the greatest. And Nesta did it with a lot of other players. It was him and Maldini, him and Yapstam. He did it with the national team with Cannavaro as well. So he was I think Nesta's a very, very underrated centre back for me.
Yeah, he's become underrated, hasn't he?
When you speak of great centre backs, his name's never mentioned, because when you think of Italian, you automatically go to Maldini, and rightfully so.
Cannavaro, Baresi.
Cannavaro, because he lifted the World Cup.
Yeah, that's it. I agree.
Fair enough, but Nesta unfairly gets missed out.
So how would you rate Nesta compared to the current two centre backs for Italy?
Well, Chiellini and
Bonucci.
No, I'd still take Chiellini and Nesta probably.
Yeah, I would have to put him above Chiellini and Bonucci. When it comes to pure defensive skill and ability, I would still take Nesta number one, but Chiellini just misses out. Bonucci, as good of a defender as he is, He's more known, almost like that Sergio Ramos style, where he's just very comfortable with the ball at the back, and he has that great chemistry and partnership with Chiellini. So Nesta's far better than Bonucci as a defender.
I think also that era, you see it with Maldini and Nesta. There's a class about them with their style, very classy, different to how it is now. Now, people can argue currently it's very hard to find defenders like that. Like maybe Van Dijk would be the closest thing because he's a bit more skillful in terms of a footballer. But for me, I think that style isn't there anymore. It's more about aggression now and whatnot. But Maldini was not an aggressive player, but he still did his job.
He was a safe defender, right?
Yeah, but they were very, very smart. They were very smart players.
And classy.
Yeah.
Moving on to the 01-02 seasons, that's when Ancelotti comes in. But Ancelotti didn't start the season with Milan. Did you guys know that?
Juve. I think he was still at Juventus.
So who points to whoever guesses who started the season with Milan in 01 as a coach?
01? No, I wouldn't know.
Oh, yes, I remember.
If you get this one, Dusty. Who?
Fatih Terim, the Turkish coach.
I hate you. Yes.
Fatih Terim?
Yeah.
The Galatasaray Turkish national team coach?
Yeah, he had good success with Galatasaray. I remember UEFA Cup and got them far in the Champions League. And then Milan poached him and didn't work out for him. And he left.
So by November, Ancelotti was managing AC Milan.
Fucking far out of Dawson.
So that's where Carlo Ancelotti comes into Milan. Obviously, still a very strong squad. They finished fourth in the Serie A that year. Shevchenko being top goal scorer, and they made the semi-finals of the UEFA Cup as well. I mean, this is what you're talking about, Akram. This is where the team started to sort of get together. You get a strong squad leading towards that 03 and 05 success.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can definitely see the team coming together. I think like one of the biggest surprises that Milan were really lucky, I guess, to get was or maybe not luck maybe luck is the wrong word, but Andrea Pirlo, man, he was signed from Inter Milan because he was Pirlo was in like a number 10, and as talented as he was, he didn't have the physical ability to be a strong number 10, and they converted him into a defensive midfielder, and he just blossomed and became such a fantastic player. Like we talk about Nesta, and Fatty and I were talking about Nesta, Maldini, and the defense, but that midfield is one of the best midfielders of all time. I mean, Pirlo, Seedorf, Gattuso, and then at the attack, with Rui Costa, that midfield four was a phenomenal.
And when did Seedorf come in?
Rossini as well, remember him?
I think Seedorf came in after.
Same year, 2002.
01-02, he's not there yet.
No, not there yet.
He's an after.
But you mentioned as well Gattuso. Now, imagine your two defensive midfielders, one being a ball winner and one being a ball player. So Gattuso doing the dirty work, and you've got Pirlo with the freedom to ping that pass, to find some of that creativity in a deeper role, not as a number 10. Fuck, that's amazing.
Yeah,
almost as
it is crazy. You can see him adding the players, each one, like slowly building that squad to that success that we see. And that midfield does become amazing.
And you still had Rui Costa as your number 10, right? Behind your Inzaghi and your Shevchenko. And we're talking about Shevchenko devastating, Andrei Shevchenko, devastating.
Peak, and you talk about a team that's just well balanced in the starting lineup, and also had depth as well they can call upon.
Yeah,
which is what you need to be a
and Pippo Inzaghi, the little fucking goal poacher, always popped up the right place, right time. I fucking hated him. I hated him like during his career, but now after the fact, I appreciate what he did because I understand more how important it is positioning. He's got to be smart, know where to be, and all that sort of stuff. I always thought, fuck, his goals are cheap, but you've got to know where to be, right? And he always had a knack for popping up wherever the ball was, tapping it in, heading it in, pulling out goals. And you're just looking to think, it's not really a striker. Like when you compare him to the Shevchenkos, who was strong, powerful, big players.
Athletic, yeah.
It was totally the opposite.
Look,
but that's why they worked.
Holding on to that strong squad we just mentioned, in the 01-02 transfer window, some good signings there. Rivaldo, we mentioned. Thomason. This is where Sedov comes in from Inter Milan. So that's where you really build the squad. I mean, the top four the forwards were Shevchenko, Inzaghi, Rivaldo, and Thomason up front.
Yes.
They were your options. So,
Yeah.
That's
John Dale Thomason was such a reliable backup striker for him at the time. He probably could have been a starter for many teams at the time. He did the job when he was caught up.
And you look at that's the year they won the Champions League, 03.
Yeah, and they faced some strong sides along the way to get there, and they just played some great football. And full credit to them for the way that they went all the way and won the competition. And the final, I remember that final against Juventus at Old Trafford, and some people call it one of the most dull Champions League finals they had seen. It wasn't as bad as what the scoreline said. Yeah, 0-0 after 90 minutes, 0-0 in extra time, and they went on penalties. But Milan actually played a good game. They had a goal disallowed for offside, I remember. But they played well. They played a good game.
Can I just say there's one player that we didn't mention at the back, Costa Curta. Doesn't get mentioned a lot. Was big during the national team during his time there as well. Obviously, he was nearing the end of his time there. But I think he also mentioned. Same with what's his name? That fucking other Italian.
See, I think of Costa Curta and I think of the 90s. That's why.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, but that doesn't mean he wasn't. That doesn't mean he wasn't important for that building of that squad.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
Interesting fact about Costa Curta in '94, he missed the Champions League final and the World Cup final through suspension the same year.
Wow, what a statistic! See what I mean? It was important to have him today.
Am I allowed to bring one more fact about Costa Curta or no?
Oh, is that some Velez shit?
Am I allowed to or not?
Is this some Velez shit?
In the final,
it's your episode. It's your episode, actor.
In the final, Costa Curta gave away the penalty, gave the back pass that led to Vela's second goal, and he got sent off in that game as well. So 94 was not the finals year for Costa Curta.
No.
He's my favorite player.
Oh, Johnny, man. Oh, Johnny. I don't know what to say, but
that's right. Ambrosini. That's what I was thinking of.
Ambrosini, yeah.
One player doesn't mention the left back, Brazilian Serginho. Remember him?
Oh, yeah. Serginho. That's right. Serginho. I forgot he was.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like their position, their lineup was so strong. The starting lineup was so strong, but their depth was amazing. You had Kaladze there. Was it Larson or Loren? I always get it confused.
Larson.
And then you had what do you call it? Serginho as well.
Was Kaladze the Georgian?
Yes. Yeah.
And Thomas Helveg as well, the Danish guy.
Wow, what a squad, man!
And still managed to finish third in the Serie A, which is like considering you went all the way in the Champions League.
But that's the thing at the time, Johnny. Serie A was still such a strong league.
And they won Coppa Italia as well. So they got a double. They couldn't really quite get the treble. So
Johnny's internet's cutting out. Johnny, your internet's very fuzzy.
When I do the technical difficulty Simpsons image soon.
Yeah.
Where was, for those of us that don't know too much detail, where was Ancelotti before he started his managing stint at Milan?
Juventus, I recall.
Was he?
Yeah, he was at Juventus. He had a pretty good career in the 90s. Obviously, he was a player for AC Milan, and then he moved to management. He was, he had a fine career. It wasn't anything to be too critical of. He coached Parma for a few years. He coached Juventus with some success. Absolutely, Juventus are obviously a strong squad. But I feel like Ancelotti didn't become the Ancelotti that we know, that still has a job till, in 2021, if it wasn't for that period of time that he coaches AC Milan. And that's what's pivotal for him. He'll always be associated with that AC Milan team.
I agree.
Would you say he reached his peak when he went to Everton, though? Did you hear?
That's the top of the top.
Can I mention one person that we all seem to have omitted completely? And a lot of people may not like him, and it's very controversial, but I feel like he was important to that era. Berlusconi. I feel like it was very important for that Milan era. I don't know if rightly or wrongly, I feel like he facilitated a lot of the big player moves to Milan. Now, obviously, did he throw money at them? I don't know how he did it. Obviously, there's a lot of corruption and bullshit there, but Berlusconi was synonymous with Milan. You can't think of AC Milan in that era and not think of Berlusconi.
Yeah.
His lifestyle, that playboy bullshit, politics, that dirtiness, but he attracted, I feel like he was able to help facilitate bringing all these big players in.
Him and the other guy.
We're talking about players that played their peak at Milan, that played in the peak of their fucking careers, played at AC Milan. Clarence Seedorf, one of my all-time favorites as a midfielder, because he was almost a complete. It's funny because he's Dutch, and the Dutch like to play the total football system. He was a complete midfielder with everything. He was box to box. He was creative, so he assisted, but he also broke up play. He was that tough mongrel in the middle. He did everything.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's why the thing is with AC Milan, one of the reasons when Johnny asked me, what topic should we do kind of thing, I thought of this period of time mostly because, Fatty, I knew how much of a fan you are of Clarence Seedorf. And because it's so interesting for his career, he won 3 Champions League titles with 3 different clubs, Ajax, Real Madrid, and then AC Milan. But I don't feel like he became his best self until he got there at AC Milan and linked up with Gattuso, Pirlo. Like you said, you had Pirlo and Gattuso running the show at the back, and Seedorf just did whatever he wanted to do. He was a goal threat. He would press and tackle. He would pass and spread the ball as well. He did, like you said, he did a bit of everything.
Well, Berlusconi was a massive part. He was a club president chairman for the whole period. So he was definitely influential.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, AC Milan had a fairly humble history until Berlusconi came in and brought the Van Bastens, the Gullits, and the Rijkaards into the club and transformed them. And he just continued that trend from the 80s and 90s into the new millennium.
What about Kaká? When did he sign?
03, 04.
He had a great he was a great presence in the Champions League as well. But I think maybe 05 Champions League run was probably his most influential. But yeah, I mean, look again. You had another attacking, midfielder / plays on the wing or whatever, could cut in, or play that sort of false 9 sort of thing behind the striker. Again, came into his prime in that era.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this was a team that was already really strong. You already had an all-world midfield. You already had a world-class defense. And then you bring this young kid from Brazil that no one really, in 2002 World Cup, I think he was there at Darcy, right? But he didn't really get much play time.
Nah, I played like 15, 20 minutes, game time,
Yeah.
whole tournament. Yeah.
So here we go. We have another young player that they've been able to uncover, and he becomes one of the best in the world. And like I said, this is the player that pushed Rui Costa into the bench.
Mm. Yeah, for Rui Costa to be part of the bench, you have to have a talented squad.
Yeah.
Can you give me a few words about Christian Abbiati as well?
I'm sorry, you kind of Abbiati?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Abbiati had a long-serving stand with AC Milan, and he did a lot of the dirty work, and he was there whenever players needed it. I guess one of the things about AC Milan we think about is all those iconic players, right? The Nestas, the Maldinis, etc. But I think that this squad success over this long period of time is built on the depth. Is built on the players like Serginho, Kaladze, Abbiati, Ambrosini, etc.
Funny you mentioned Abiati. Whenever I think of Abiati, I feel like that era, that late 90s, early 2000s era, there was a lot of big Italian goalkeepers at the time. So obviously Buffon, yes, we're aware, but Francesco Toldo as well. We're talking about Abiati. A little bit earlier was Pagliuca.
Gianluca Pagliuca.
Peruzzi, Angelo Peruzzi.
A lot of big keepers not just at the clubs they were at, but they were all fighting for a national team.
Carlo Cudicini.
Yeah.
I don't think Cudicini reached those heights, to be honest, in terms of pushing for a national team spot. But Toldo did, Buffon did.
But he's still a very solid Italian keeper.
Pagliuca was what, 94 World Cup?
Pagliuca was 94, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had Angelo Peruzzi as well.
For Roma, right?
Juventus and Inter I played for them.
Italians in that era were stacked in the goalkeeping department, in the defensive department. It was just riches, absolute amazing players that all happened to be in the same era.
That 03-04 season, they actually won the Serie A. So they took those titles.
How could you not with that squad, though?
It was the first time
the same year. Wasn't the same season as all? They signed Kaká and also got Cafu.
Cafu came in Cafu came in.
And then Stam was that year or the year after?
Stam wasn't there that season, no.
Yeah, the year after.
Wow. Yeah. So you have arguably the best right back in the world in Cafu at the time. I don't know if Maldini was pushed out to the left then, or Stam hadn't come in yet, but arguably the two best centre backs in the world, with the best right back in the world, arguably the best midfield in football at the time, and forward going crazy. Shevchenko on fire, Filippo Inzaghi. Your midfield is an absolute, just an all-star team, pretty much.
Yeah. That's crazy. Now this is the big season that I want to bring up. Obviously, the 04-05. Yes, the final went to Liverpool. Everyone knows that.
Rubbish.
But
No.
far out that starting 11 for AC Milan. I know we spoke about in the past Barcelona being the best club football that we've seen in our lifetimes and probably ever. But
cutting out, buddy.
All right, I'm gonna keep talking. Let me know if you can hear me. But on paper, the starting 11, has there ever been a stronger 11 ever?
Oh, on paper, it was one of the best I've seen. I recall. Sorry.
No, go for it. I was going to say, yeah, keep going.
I was going to say, you mentioned Liverpool winning the final, but seriously, that I still don't know how they lost at Milan. Being 3-0 up at halftime, dominating the game as well. I still think it was that 6 minute of madness that lost it for them, where Liverpool scored 3 goals in 6 minutes.
Yeah. Akram, you can go last because this is your thing. I'm just going to say, Johnny, you're right. On paper, absolutely, this would be, if you had to pick an all-star team in that 2005 year from any other club in Europe, you'd be very hard pressed to substitute out 1 or 2 players from that whole squad. Like you may, like possibly you might substitute out Dida in goals as one of the players in the back line, because I hate South American keepers. I think they're shit.
There we go.
But I would swap out Dida. But from the back line, if you're talking Cafu, Nesta, Yapsta, Maldini, you can't. You can't. No one else takes it.
I totally agree, Cuddy. I think the only thing that was missing was that win against Liverpool as a year. I think you could rank it up next to 2010, 2011 Barcelona and 92, 93 AC Milan of the early 90s. Like, I think it's one of the best club sides ever.
Yeah, and your midfield again, as we said, Pirlo, Gattuso, Rui Costa, Kaká, Clarence Seedorf. It's an all-star team.
The 4 that started in the final were Pirlo, Gattuso, Seedorf, and Kaká. That's
and
crazy.
then you also had that season they got Hernan Crespo on loan from Chelsea.
That's right. Wow. Yes, that's right. He was. He did. He came on, didn't he?
He scored
He
2 goals in the
started. He
final.
started.
He started.
He scored 2 goals.
Fucking hell. Crespo and Shevchenko. I felt like Crespo and Shevchenko were very similar players in their style. Both big forwards, could turn and shoot, could score headers, very, very explosive sort of big forwards. So Crespo, Shevchenko, Inzaghi, like that's up front. And your midfield, mate, honestly.
So that
100%.
in that
100%.
window, in that window, you got Stam and Crespo. That's once again good recruitment.
That's a good business, man.
100%. I think that this strike partnership between Shevchenko and Inzaghi, and then Shevchenko and Crespo, Johnny, this is always what you like to see, right? It's like 2 number 9s together in the same formation. It's actually rare where you can actually classify 2 classic 9s working together in the same team and actually working. And I think it's because you had your number 10 was either Kaká or Rui Costa. Your number 8 or your centre mid was Sedov, and then you had Andrea Pirlo. So you had that creativity to give these goal scorers so much supply.
And you had Gattuso doing all the dirty work, shielding the back 4.
And he would kick the crap out of you and then give the ball off to Pirlo.
Think about it. You had Gattuso, right, shielding a back 4 who don't need to be shielded. This is the epitome of triple vaxing and double masking at the same time. It's unbelievable. Like if you had a weakened back 4 and you had to play, the defensive midfielder sweeping across to sort of, shield them, you'd understand. But Gattuso shielding Nesta and Yapstam or Maldini and Cafu, come on.
Funnily enough, that Serie A season, Juventus copped 1 less goal than Milan. So they weren't the best defensive team in the league. That's crazy.
Oh, look, Juventus were in the strong side in their own right at the time as well. They had a stacked team. Obviously, Calciopoli kind of tarnished that era for them. But that was what Serie A was still just before when the problems started to hit Italian football. And then we all know what happened after that, unfortunately.
So they finished second in Serie A and finished second in the Champions League.
I don't know how they would win that final. Honestly, I don't know how they would win that final.
They were the better team. They were the better team that game. And I still remember that Shevchenko from point blank, Dudek saving right in front. Like how?
That when it was 3-0 at halftime, I thought, man, this is going to be an absolute embarrassment. I was just waiting for him to just absolutely smash them. Just absolutely steamrolled them in the second half. And I thought it'd be 5-0 maybe or something like that. But
forget titles,
we all know what happened.
Forget the wins. Out of the era that we're talking about from 2000 to 07, is this the strongest lineup that Milan had, in your opinion, Akram?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think 1 more season or 2 more seasons, Cafu, Maldini, Stam do start to get a little too old. This was right at that perfect mix between the age and the experience and the talent. Nesta was still, I think by 2005, I think Nesta was the best defender in the world. I think he just edges out kind of Barrow. Like Friday said, he's become underrated because he missed 2006 kind of Barrow too, right? So I think he was the best defender in the world. Then you had Maldini as well, who was still incredibly old at the time, but still able to do the job. I think this is their best iteration. All they needed was the trophies, eh?
Right.
Then you go to 05.
You know what's crazy is that Maldini, as he got older, instead of playing in a centre-back role, was moved out to the left, which is, I believe, is more demanding fitness-wise than a centre-back. And he still performed that role. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable when you think no one considers that and thinks usually when, you'll be more as a central player, it's a little slower. You can read the game a lot more. You're not facing wingers, that are generally pacey or.
Yeah, you're right.
but as he progressed, he got pushed out to the left back role, and he was still the first name on the team sheet. And
Absolutely, you're right.
He wasn't a weak link or anything like that. It's just
and it's like all the more impressive that the formation that Ancelotti liked to play was some kind of variation of like the 4-3-1-2 or the 4-3-2-1, which either way was like a narrow formation. So you did need your fullbacks to push up a good amount and do a lot of work. It wasn't like a formation that's naturally wide. It was naturally narrow. And he needed to. He couldn't just sit at the back there and just chill.
Yeah, there was none of this. What you see today, which is 5 in the midfield, or you got, the wingers wing backs going up and down, or you're playing a 3-5-2 sort of thing. It wasn't that. So it was the traditional 4 at the back, and then the midfield is, like you said, very narrow because those players there really you couldn't move them. They belong there and they picked themselves on that team sheet. But Maldini did the job.
After that season, they obviously made a huge signing that changed the history of the club.
Here we go.
Zelko Kalac came in.
We've got an Aussie. Yes, he was part of that team, that great team. Back up to Dita.
So 05-06, he came in. Once again, Serie A, they finished third after losing points, I believe.
Yeah. This is when they got after the 05-06 season, right? Or the 06-07, Johnny?
05-06.
I was just before the World Cup, though. The culture probably happened after the World Cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this wasn't a point reduction. They came third purely on merit. Because that's what's crazy. How strong? Who came first and second? I assume Juventus won that Serie A, and who came second?
Inter, because then Inter got handed the titles when Juve was stripped.
So yeah, that's right. In 05-06. So it's what's crazy about Serie A, is that Juventus was at the time was Ibrahimovic there as well.
Yep.
Ibrahimovic, Trezeguet, Del Piero behind him. It was just that amazing time for that competition,
Nedved and Thuram.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, Lilian Thuram as well. I mean, it's such a shame. I don't think I think now slowly the Serie A it's starting to recover from that, but it's been a good 10 to 15 years that
definitely since
after that farce.
Yeah.
Mate, it's been a very, very long road back, and it's a shame because Serie A 90s, early 2000s was.
But you know what? What strikes me, Fatty, and me and you've talked about this a lot, is that I feel like in this period of time, the year 2000, 2005, this period of time, the 90s, I feel like players on average. We had better players back then than we do now. I feel like talent's been diluted. Nowadays, I don't feel like the top 50 today wouldn't compete with the top 50 back then.
I totally agree.
No way.
We touched on that previously.
Yeah,
I think we made a quick comparison. Maybe one for another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do a top 20 in the world and top 20, in certain eras. In the 90s or 2000s. I don't think it'll compare. I believe it was a lot harder then, because you had to rely a lot on natural ability. Nowadays, it's different. It's all about nutrition. It's all about fitness. Everything's monitored. Everything's measured to the millisecond, to the millimeter. There's a lot of science behind it. Back then, it wasn't that. So you had to rely a lot on your natural ability and your skill.
You took the words out of my mouth. I think sports science is the biggest factor that changed the way we look at footballers.
And you talk about touch on AC Milan in that 05-06 season, the Champions League. They got to the semi-finals and then they lost to Barcelona at the time. That was when Ronaldinho led the way and really dominated that tie. Scored that great goal at the San Siro in the first leg, and obviously Barcelona went on to win it that season. So it was good. The quality and the teams in there was.
Who did they beat in the final?
Fadi can answer that.
Funny, fucking idiot.
Okay. I was just asking a question, right?
Why, Johnny? Come on.
I have to fucking jab everything. Yeah, pull out a fucking Villa's stat now. Oh, you don't have any stats post 1985. That's why.
Well, 94. Post 94.
94.
94.
You guys are funny. All right, let's get into the last season of this episode is the 06-07. Right? So Kakar's still there. And this is where you're talking, Akram, about being narrows, like sort of Christmas tree type of formation.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really important to touch, Johnny, on the fact that, like, Ancelotti, and look, I've said this before in the podcast, I brought up this anecdote before, but Ancelotti, you could see him growing as a coach because now he plays that Christmas tree with Shevchenko as the striker or Crespo or Inzaghi,
Crespo's
and behind him, you had Seedorf and Kaká, right?
Yeah.
In like a 4-3-2-1.
Yeah.
And at the time, if you rewind back to like 95, 96, the coach of Parma, he had a prime Zola in his team, and he had a chance to bring in Roberto Baggio. And he said, no, because he couldn't fit these two number 10s into his team. And this anecdote, this period of time really taught him a lot because he came to regret it, going, I could have had Baggio and Zola. And he didn't feel confident enough to be tactically flexible. And then fast forward 10 years, he has the same issue. How do you have Gattuso and Rossini, Pirlo, Seedorf, and Kaká in the same team? He has to find a way, and he did. And then the result, Kaká becomes the best player in the world.
That's what is that when he won Ballon d'Or?
Yes.
07.
I think that was the season 06-07. Shevchenko moved to Chelsea. It was.
That's right. Yeah, Shevchenko wasn't there after that. That's when Abramovich brought him over.
And they had
very hot and cold at the start of the.
Who did Milan get in that transfer? Do you guys remember?
Gilardino.
I'm talking about a bigger name.
Ronaldo.
Oh, Ronaldo. He came halfway through the season.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
He has to justify. He came halfway through, Johnny. Not the other transfer. No, he came halfway through.
No, he came through halfway, which meant that he missed out on the Champions League medal because it was cup tied.
Hey, man, you got fucking slapped with the statistic right place.
So I'm just saying, Ronaldo could have won a Champions League, but he didn't.
They even told me that it was cup tied. There you go.
I remember because
sorry, just a quick one. Is that still applicable now? A player still cup tied if they transfer? Is it?
I heard they've changed it, which means if you change clubs that compete in Champions League, I don't think you're cup tied. I have to read that again though.
Because I haven't heard about it recently. It used to be a big thing. It used to be cup tied, especially even in England when you were playing, the FA Cup, for example. You still could have been cup tied. I haven't heard of it recently, so I don't know if it's been removed or. Interesting. I have to look at that.
Yeah.
Next episode, bring us the information.
I'll do my homework.
So obviously, this is the season where they won the Champions League. That's right. They had the revenge.
Yeah, they get their revenge against Liverpool.
Yeah. What do you think about the final, Darcy?
Yeah, it was a game where Milan really wanted to get that revenge from 2 years before that in Istanbul. This one was in Athens, and I recall Pirlo and Kaká leading the strings in midfield, and Inzaghi getting 2 goals that night, and then gave a 2-0 lead, and then Dirk Kuyt scoring towards the end, but it was too late. And yeah, Milan got their 5th or 6th, or even 7th European Cup that they had, and then that was kind of it for Milan. I think that was it. Like in terms of how strong they were in Europe, that was the last time we kind of heard them or saw them do well in Europe.
And once again, they finished 4th in Serie A. So out of this whole period that we're talking about how successful they were, how strong they were, the number of players they had, did we mention one Serie A title? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, 2004.
And the one before that was 99. Yeah.
That's a bit crazy. Like we're talking about the golden era, all these names, Ancelotti, European success, and yet one Serie A title. I know it's a strong Serie A. I agree with you, Ak, 100%. But one Serie A titles, when you compare to other eras like the 90s and 80s that we're talking about, you'd expect more titles there for some reason.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's very, very surprising. But like I said, like I guess started the period from 2000 is so you can see the origins and roots in some of the players that start being added and built. They don't really become the best team or thereabouts in Serie A until 2003. And then by 2006, they do get a massive hit with Calciopoli, and that league does get turned upside down. And Inter, as we know, reaps a lot of those rewards. It's in the European Cup that you can see where in 2003, they take the best Juventus have to offer, push him all the way to penalties and win. 2005, they scored 3 goals against Liverpool and just obliterated them off the field. And then it was like Adasa said, that 6 minutes of madness that changed the entire legacy of this team. And then, of course, in 2007, they get their revenge and they can show that their true quality.
I recall after that 07 season, they signed big names like Beckham came along, and then Ronaldinho was there. But obviously, maybe after their peak times, but they still pulled some big names in.
Yeah, I think that was still the. That's a testament to the fact that they could attract those kind of players. And if you look at it, if you list all the big players that went through AC Milan, they've had the best players in the world come through at any given point, have come and played for Milan.
Of course, Zlatan now, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo.
But
just to name a few.
Yeah. You've had 3 of the most successful Brazilians: Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, for a little bit, Kaká, Dida to an extent.
It's like you said, it's Berlusconi. So the Berlusconi factor at the time, he could do no wrong as a owner of a club. He was premier of it. I feel like what happened after 2007 was that Serie A as a whole took a massive hit. And
It did.
I think financially, economically, I think from a reputation standpoint, and then this was at the time where like you see the Premier League really rising with their quality and with their Chelsea, with their money and their artificial history of theirs, Johnny. So I think that like we started to see those kind of clubs attract other players away from Serie A as well as AC Milan.
One player I've been mentioning from the early 2000s, Oliver Bierhoff was there. Remember, he was around.
That's right. Yeah.
For me, he's probably one of the best headers of the ball I've ever seen. His headers of the ball were so strong and powerful and accurate. It was unbelievable. And
100%. He was the reason why they won that 99 season, Darcy?
Yeah, he was very influential. Came from Udinese, and he actually, funny for him, he built a massive reputation in Italy, but in the Bundesliga in Germany, he completely flopped. But it was in Italy where he made his name.
Interesting point. Very interesting.
Any last comments about the Milan of the 2000s? Any last thoughts, opinions, or anything you guys want to bring up?
For me, as I said, the Berlusconi thing was enormous. Obviously, after the farce of the Italian scandal, that's when he sort of became the villain, because before that, no one really questioned him. The guy did whatever the fuck he wanted, but he brought in the players that we obviously all saw and loved. After that, everything was an open book. Everything was questioned, and it started to, go a bit downhill. But the one thing I'm going to say, that squad, that 05 squad, for me, is one of the greatest squads of all time. Greatest club squads of all time, absolutely, without a doubt.
Darcy, Akram, any last words?
Yeah, I'll have to say agree with Fadi, that 05 team on paper, when you look at the starting lineup, you see it on your social medias every time they put it up, and what a team that was. But I think just going back and reflecting, not just on Milan, how strong they were, but we also touched on a bit about Juventus and Inter, and got teams like Lazio and Roma, how strong they were. And as we mentioned, it just showed how strong Serie A was, and what a great league it was at the time to watch, and what a time it was to be alive to see it. And hopefully we'll come back. Might be a good, strong comeback, make it be as strong league as it was before. Then that's good. It would be good to see.
100%. I love this team. I love this period of time. That their jerseys were beautiful. Their home jersey, and then that beautiful away jersey with the white with the red lines on the side. It's a fantastic team. And Joe Pirlo is one of my favorite players of all time. And I love the history that he has, both with the way he comes in from Inter, becomes a superstar, and even the way he leaves later, many years down the line, and then he still maintains that quality over at Juventus when everyone thought he was over and done with. So, like, for me, this team really had a real nostalgic place for me. Darcy, you talked about the 2003 Champions League final. Yes, it was not exactly, the most exciting final of all time, but it was such a fun final because you had like some of the best players in the world playing that final.
Oh.
And I think it was funny that 2003, AC Milan win the Champions League, and yet Pablo Nedved gets the Ballon d'Or, right?
Yeah, he had a great year. He had a
great year. Like, this was a time where you just felt like there was so much going on. And, I mean, you at this time you still have Real Madrid, who just signed Ronaldo that season, and all that excitement that Los Galacticos brought in. And Man United still, I think, was that the season that I said they brought in Veron?
In 01 from Lazio. Yeah.
01, right? So this period of time was where just football felt so exciting. Yeah, still had like Arsenal with Thierry Henry probably should have won it over Nedved. So, I mean, I guess like how much I love this team, but it's more just how much I love this period of time.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Are there any transfers you don't know about, Darcy?
Transfers I don't know? Oh, there's a lot. I don't know. What do you mean?
He probably doesn't know the Kazakhstan league transfers.
Akram, did you enjoy the episode?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this was an episode I thought we all might enjoy because, like, that period of time is all of us growing up with some of these clubs that were at their peak. Serie A was certainly at their peak, and AC Milan. We've talked about it many times. Instagram keeps bringing back this team, for us to reflect on, and it's a team loaded with stars that we all really appreciated, from Nesta to Serdov to Kaká to Rui Costa. So yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with this, but I always have fun talking to you guys.
Oh, stop it!
It's full of shit.
On that lie,
you know what? Can I just say something quickly as well?
Okay.
I was going to say something quickly. Whenever you both brought up that Instagram thing, when it brings up those memories, especially that Milan team, it actually makes me sad because I think to myself, we were so young then. I feel like we didn't appreciate as much as we do now. Like, I think to myself, imagine if we were how we are now and we lived in that era. I think it would have been crazy. Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, we've experienced a lot of great players now. The Ronaldos and Messis, and that's never going to be replicated. But I just feel like there was so much happening at the same time. There were so many great players at the same time, spread across the Serie A, playing together, playing in different leagues, playing against each other in the Champions League. Like, these matchups are never going to happen again. Never.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, thanks again for tonight, guys. And we'll see everyone next week. See you guys.
Ciao.